Welcome back to the Valisights podcast, the show where we talk with the financial leaders, FP&A experts, controllers, and CFOs who are shaping the future of accounting, finance, and strategic decision making. I'm your host, Albert Ramos. Today's guest brings an amazing mix of technical excellence, creativity, and a passion for inspiring the next generation of accountants. Lukas Sundahl, so excited, is a fractional CFO and controller, a certified management accountant, a certified in strategy and competitive analysis professional, and the founding of Accounting Couture, a platform dedicated to promoting the accounting profession, strengthening the professional community, and providing scholarships for career changers entering accounting and finance. We need so much more for that, and I can't wait to talk about it. Through Accounting Couture, Lukas has launched initiatives like a kids' activity book. We're going to chat about it to teach the fundamentals of accounting early and created a brand that makes accounting more approachable, relatable, fun, and exciting. If you've caught him on LinkedIn, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I laugh every morning looking at Lukas's post. Beyond that, Lukas has extensive hands-on experience in building financial infrastructures, leading ERP and reporting system implementations, and bringing data-driven insights to businesses ranging from aerospace manufacturing to consulting and, of course, fractional CFO services. Very exciting. Today, we're diving into the future of accounting education, strategic finance leadership in SMBs and mid-markets, why storytelling matters when presenting financials, and how to balance innovation with core accounting principles in a rapidly changing world. So let's get started. Lukas, welcome to the Valentine podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
My pleasure, man. It's been a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this conversation. We've had many prior to, but I think a lot of people need to hear what you've been doing. We obviously see not only the jokes that you got out there, the what I would call the accounting dad jokes. It's so funny, but also some amazing things that you're doing to league a legacy, not only in your own home, but for those kiddos out there that are looking to lean in more into accounting and math. So very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, your background's unique. So what I'd love to do, what inspired you to launch Accounting Couture alongside the fractional CFO work you've been doing?
Yeah, so it goes back about 5 years ago to the COVID era, and we had extra time with being not having to commute anymore for work. So my wife and I downloaded TikTok. I'd heard about it before when it was Musically through Gary
Right.
Vaynerchuk,
I remember that.
and I was like, yeah, let's. I mean, we watched some videos here and there, like kids go to bed, and so we watched videos, funny, kind of funny. They had some of the trends at the time, dance things, and so for the next year or so, I was like, there's got to be a way I can get involved. I could do something on the platform. And I kept thinking about like, okay, like I just got to figure out how to do the recording and whatnot. And then finally one day I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So
Love it.
I think it was like
Jump
October
right in.
2021. I just turned on the camera. My first video was super grainy, but I just dove in and started making the accounting videos. And then about that same time, also, I was trying to think of like fun ways to do some like extra things like accounting related. And I'd look and I ordered a shirt like over the summer. It was instead of Gap, the denim company, it was GAAP for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles.
Right.
And so I was like, I can make some accounting shirts. There were some out there, but I thought there could be more fun ones. And
Right.
so at the same time frame I'm making videos, I kind of morphed and started creating t-shirts, and it's just evolved from there.
So cool. Well, I'll tell you, I've been following you for a long time, and you, like I said earlier, you crack me up every morning. I'm looking forward to your posts. There's been a couple, what I would call bangers out there. There's one, the Batman one. If you
Yes.
remember, I reached out to him like, you have me for the rest of my life. You're hilarious.
Yeah.
There was a recent one when it was like the follow-up email, and you had the seal turning its head as it's going by, and I'm just in tears driving. I'm like, I need more of him. We need a chat. He has a great sense of humor, and you know what's cool about it too is I like you naturally, mathematics and finance and accounting has just always come pretty naturally. But there's others that, when you say math or when you say finance, they kind of run away. What
Yes.
you do is actually invite people into the world, but very subtly with humor, with great hospitality, with great service. It's very warm. And that actually comes to my next piece that I wanted to ask you about. I mean, you're a master at storytelling. So, can you walk us through just what that looks like, storytelling through financials when it comes to sharing financials for businesses?
Yeah, so for me, like I've always enjoyed reading, and I've read different books on like how to kind of build a story. So what I try and do is take the financial data and just kind of make it like a narrative. Okay, this is what happened. Kind of try to explain it not with like accounting jargon, but just basic terms.
Right.
Bring in the operations perspective, marketing, and just kind of tell a story of this is what happened based on like kind of the consumer, like the end customer, kind of what they may have been going through and why it impacted our financials a specific way. And so, yeah, I just try and make it relatable because sometimes you see professionals on LinkedIn or other platforms that they talk about all these acronyms and the things like which are great if you know what they are, but if you don't, it's not helpful to a CEO or operations executive. Like, okay, that's great. I don't really care about that. Like, what does that mean for me? So it's taking the financial data, the results, and making it meaningful for your audience. And that's kind of like where I tie it back to storytelling, where it's making it memorable for them. So like not only the next day, but the next week or month, they think of some of the stories that you shared and like it hits home and it's things that they can do to optimize performance going forward.
Yeah, it's so good. And I think, and I'd love to know your thoughts about this, but I've really been spending a lot of time here and like you, mentoring and helping the next generation, but even our existing colleagues, with the power of technology, not just automation, but now AI and using this, what I call digital species, this intelligence to get to some of the modeling, forecasting, even the full on numbers, right? The data faster. I'm letting people know is your ability to communicate clearly, to storytell, to lean in on your EQ is more important than ever before. The human touch and human connection. Have you seen that as you're doing your fractional controller and CFO work as well as accounting couture?
Yeah, I found it. Yeah, it's a great point. It's you have to connect with the people, especially if you want to go further in your career to
Hmm.
get to the executive level positions. The technical skills they're important, but those can only get you so far. It's
Right.
having the emotional intelligence, connecting with people, but like your company you're working with, or if you're in a fractional capacity, your end customers and talking with them and being relational about it. Yes, you have to deliver
So
the
good.
financial results, give them strategy, but you really do like form like a bond, you build rapport. And so it's important to not just have the technical skills but have that emotional intelligence, kind of see sometimes that you have to have difficult conversations. They may need to reduce staff or cut back on certain expenditures. So that's why having that strong relationship is important. The trust factor, you have to build that, and I think that's
Right.
as technology improves for things helping you on the back end with the data and the day-to-day operations piece, you can be more strategic and then start thinking through ways to help in that regard. So yeah, I feel like as technology continues to improve, the human element will just be that much more important, and people like want that more. They can have reports spit out by the computer, but they want to still have somebody to talk to, like explore the data, talk it through with them, and then make plans.
Absolutely.
So the human element is definitely very important.
Yeah, so spot on. Well, you've been a controller, a fractional controller, as well as a fractional CFO, right? So this mixture or just wide array of the technical, right, on the front end, as I would call it, and even the FP&A strategic finance side. What have you learned about that shift as you tailor back and forth or spend more time in one area versus the other? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm still kind of new to the fractional, like the CFO space in particular. But for
Yeah.
me, it's taking the financial data, kind of doing the initial reporting, but then trying to shift the framework to like, what do we do going forward?
Oh, I
So
love that.
so much of the work with controllership is compliance and then backward looking, but it's really taking that data and making thinking through with your client, what do we do going forward? Like, what do we do on marketing spend? Does it make sense to like go a different marketing channel, maybe a different sales channel? There's ways that you can maybe increase sales without increasing the time demand on the owner. One client I was thinking of, they have sales in their retail stores, but what are some things they can do to increase sales in like through social media campaigns and different things, or connecting with their local community? That doesn't take a lot of time, but just things they could kind of do with it in addition to their normal retail channel and have more revenue coming for the company.
Wow, I love your journey, and that's so spot on, right? When you're talking about now, you're leaning into what I would say is more recommendations, insights, the advisory
Yeah.
side of it. And that's where we're both, it sounds like, challenging others, especially on the front end for those that are accountants, right? Bookkeepers, accounting firms, even controllers. And I'd love to know why you made that leap and that transition. But from what I'm gathering is that the automation and AI technology is starting to, yes, take over and in some cases replace some of the front end accounting work, not all of it, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of it. And so really the message out there for those accountants, controllers, senior accountants, et cetera, is really start leaning into how do you start looking at the other high level view of, okay, once the books are closed, P&Ls, balance sheets, et cetera, are generated. What do they mean? What's going on there? And how can you advise the owner, CEO, even CFO, right, on what to do next? That is going to be your key differentiator. Do you agree with that? And is that why you made the leap
Oh, no,
into,
I agree 100%. That's why I made the leap myself, but I also
yeah,
see that for future accountants with like some things with AP automation, AR automation, some of those repetitive tasks like the manual entry, the bank reconciliations, those are going to be automated. So there, I mean, with QuickBooks Online, sometimes people will be like, "Well, the bank reconciliation feeds still have issues."
yeah,
Yes, but it's going to continue to get better. So
it
it's
is.
going to be quickly analyzing the data. It's still going to have that human element to verify, do some double checks, but then it's like it's taking you to that next level in your cognitive ability. So what do you do with the data? I mean,
Right,
before you spent the time like creating the reports and all that stuff. Now it's going to be done in a fraction of the time. So then what do you do? So then you can start thinking through, if you're an AP, for instance, what are some ways we can still make payments on time, but maybe be more with the cash flow, be more conservative. So still making your payments on time for your vendors, but being more strategic in payments, maybe
hmm,
getting some different terms and stuff like that. So it's taking not only just like the keying the data you did before, but really thinking through like what are some ways that we can be more efficient in the process, that kind of thing.
great. Yeah, proactive, preventative, strategic. And we'll come
Yeah.
back to that. I do want to touch back on accounting because it's still important. So hear me
Oh
out,
yeah, for
everyone
sure.
listening, right? And you know this, Lucas, for sure. Accounting is so important. The foundational fundamentals. I'm so glad I learned accounting first before moving on to the FP&A, et cetera, because it really taught me the key basics, right? And so, you know, you spent a lot of time here. Accounting Couture actually is an organization that promotes the accounting profession. We're actually starting to see somewhat of a shortage out there, right? And I think that's why you're also doing what you're doing on the educational front, on the scholarships. We need more accountants. It's still important, very important. It's the lifeline of an entire business. So, what do you think is the most misunderstood about the accounting profession today?
So I think it's misunderstood that so many accountants that they only deal with taxes or dealing with audits, those kind of thing,
Hmm.
or they're just stuck behind a computer in some back office. And maybe that was the case, like maybe even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But now
Right.
accountants are being more forward facing. They have to truly understand the business. So they're talking not only people in their finance department, but operations, marketing, like sales, legal, HR. It all comes together, planning for headcount, all those kind of things. So it's just that much more important to really have like that firm foundational knowledge and then applying it and using it to help with strategy and forecasting, planning, all those kind of things.
It's awesome. Well, you and your wife just recently launched a kids activity book. I saw another post
Yes.
earlier today. It's awesome. You're actually doing it with your kiddos, and it's for teaching the accounting basics. So what inspired you to create, write this book? You know, who's doing, I love the visuals as well. Those were awesome. You know, you're really focusing on the financial literacy for kids. What made you want to do that?
Well, yeah. So I was thinking back when I was a kid, I don't even know when I really first heard the term like, accountant. My dad was in banking, and I knew he did that, but I didn't really know what he did on a daily basis. And then he had a good friend that was a CPA that did our family's taxes, but I didn't really know like what that meant. I know
Right.
like as I got into high school, I got some summer jobs and different things. filing for you get your W-2 forms and all that stuff. But I really thought like that was it for accounting, like just do the taxes. And then when I even got to college, I knew some people that were accounting majors, but I was in kinesiology, so I didn't really like go deep into what they were doing on a daily basis. So again, I thought it was people going on to become CPAs, audit tax, all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
for me, I really wanted it. So even for my own kids, if they ask, like, they know I'm an accountant and financial leader. What do you do on a daily basis? So I wanted to do it like at a high level, just kind of teach them some of the basics and accounting terms, debits and credits. We even have characters through the activity book,
Saw that.
Deborah debit, Craig credit, to teach them
I like the
left and right.
characters with the plus and the minus with their
Yeah,
eyeball. It's so funny. It looks
because
awesome.
no matter where you are, it's important to have like this general understanding of accounting, even like no matter what they do in their career, if they go accounting, healthcare, whatever it is, it's important to have that foundational knowledge to, if they run their own business or if they're an investor, it just helps make more sense of when they see financial data. And there's different things I've seen over the time that were financial literacy and teaching kids about budgeting and whatnot, which is important. And I think that's amazing. I just wanted to add like a tie in the accounting piece so they could get a true understanding of the financial data, how it's built, how it's presented. And so this first book is more geared towards like early elementary school kids. We'll have another version that's more later elementary school age group would have more math involved. But again,
Right.
just teaching like the high level basics, some terminology, making it fun, and maybe just getting them interested in knowing that's like it's a career option for them.
So cool. Well, I already bought a couple copies. My 7 and 5-year-old are ready to rock. We can't wait. I was
Awesome.
showing them pictures. Yeah, so exciting. And I love that. I love that you're giving back and we're starting them early. And I got to say, and for those that don't follow you on LinkedIn, please follow Lucas on LinkedIn. I love not only the professional side, but you are so vulnerable. You really allow people to see kind of behind the scenes, right? From your kiddos' lacrosse games to even most recently, I saw your son's economic fair. I'm like, man, I wish I had that when I was that young. That is
Yes.
awesome. And what you said in your post was you mentioned early exposure to business concepts matter. And that totally rung with me because there's still this significant gap out there. And I think schools are getting better, but there's still a significant gap when it comes to financial literacy. And what have you seen, right? As you write your book and as you spend more time in schools, and how amazing that your son gets that type of exposure. But as you think about broadly and those that are listening, what can we do differently? How can schools think differently or do differently, specifically around financial education?
Yeah, so what my school does, and they've done it the same when my older son was in second grade, but they have an economics fair where kids either create something or they sell like a service. And he made little tic tac toe, as like he had a bag and then the pieces that go inside the burlap bag, and then sold those. But it just teaches
So cool.
kids to like make something and then you like have to sell it, kind of learn about like pricing and then all that kind of detail, and then they sell their stuff. They want to sell something that's popular, so it kind of teaches them not only the basics of like sales revenue, but also you want to have a product that's in demand, so you can make what you think is a great product, but then if nobody wants to buy it, then you're just out of the cost that you took to produce those, whatever it is, whatever
Right.
goods or and whatnot. So it teaches them kind of thinking about what are some things that like my friends would want to buy. So they think through the sales piece, the marketing piece, and that kind of thing. So it's like all in one, teaching them about business and interacting with their peers.
It's so good. And you inspired me. I haven't told you this yet. So my wife has been really into, I guess you would call it baking bread or making bread, the sourdough bread. She has this like
Oh
odd,
yes, yeah.
yeah, it's like I think like it's like a thing right now, and it looks very weird. But when you eat it, I'm like, okay, keep making it. It's like this little jar, some starter thing that she does. I have no idea, but anyways, it was pretty dang good. And these massive loaves. It actually doesn't hurt my stomach. I'm like, I don't know what you're using, but keep making it. It's great. It's great
Yeah.
on the
No, that's
stomach.
awesome.
But my kiddo, so my son, he's 7. He's what I call my math whiz, and he loves this stuff. But I said, hey, let's number one, your mom's now the new employee of your business, but what would you price it out at? Let's talk about the ingredients, how much they cost, what your cost of goods sold are. So, what would you price it out at? Your revenue per loaf, right? What are your costs of goods from the ingredients? And then what are you taking home? And, his eyes just lit up. And it's just those little things like the post that you do, and then, inspiring me to do something so simple in the household. And now he's all over it. But man, it's like, he's not paying my wife yet. So I don't know. I think we're going to
Yeah.
get in trouble, IRS flagged or something.
Yes.
So it's great. Well, what's interesting? As I was learning more about you, and everyone heard kind of who you are and what your bio is all about. But you recently, and this was awesome, you presented at the AFWA Tulsa group, and you were chatting about credentials outside of the CPA, right? And what you have tagged on you, and what you've earned is the CMA as well as the CSCA. And can you highlight those designations? Because typically we see CPA, but you're changing the ball game, which I like. Can you walk
Yeah.
us through your designations there?
Yeah. So it's my career is interesting. People that know me or will read about me. So I started off as a personal trainer, did that for
Right.
about 5 or 6 years full time.
Wow.
Came over, worked at a CPA firm briefly, and got some exposure to tax and audit a little bit. And then I got a job in industry and learned a lot. And so for 2 or 3 years, I was kind of going back and forth debating: do I want to do CPA, CMA, and if I had done accounting from the beginning, I tell people this all the time when I'm like speaking and whatnot, I would have done both. But I got to a point where I was like already focused on industry specific. I started at an aerospace manufacturing company, so
Wow.
ultimately I chose the CMA, and it's the certified management accountant, and it really focuses on knowing like the why behind the numbers. If you see marketing from the IMA, that's the institution that grants the CMA credential. It's
Right.
really knowing the why behind the numbers. It's true management accounting, so it's taking the financial data and then doing like reporting. So you have kind of some of the exam is like more controllership, and then the second part of the exam is more finance focused and really thinking strategically. And so through the exam, there's multiple choice questions, and then at the end of both, there's two parts of the exam. It's scenarios. So you have to think through like what would you do if you're the CFO of a company,
Oh, so good.
controller, do you keep making product X or do you shut it down? Do you close plant B? But if you do, all those costs that are allocated to plant B now have to be absorbed by plant A. So it's taking that and really like thinking through like what would you do on the job. And so that's why I really love the CMA. It's taking the financial data. So that's why people that want to pursue that credential, it's very valuable. Or people that in the audience I spoke with, they were CPAs, and like you could take that CPA and then marry it with the CMA, and just have that much more financial expertise that you could bring to companies or work in a fractional capacity. And so the other one is the certified in strategy and competitive analysis. So one of the exam parts on the CMA is business strategy and Porter's five forces. So thinking through competing in
Excellent.
markets, all that kind of stuff. And it just expands upon that. So it's really what did you do as a financial leader for forward looking? It's forecasting, planning, not just from a financial perspective, but operationally, sales, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So it just expands upon the CMA part that's focused on strategy. And so that's why that credential was very valuable to me, and that's why I pursued it right after I earned my CMA.
Well, now I'm going to be looking for it everywhere, because that's really
Yeah,
what we need right now. So, I mean, kudos to you, and way to go and earning it. And that's awesome, from CPA to CMA to the CSCA. I mean, again, that goes back to that advisory role,
yeah,
your ability to communicate, understand the why, walk through all these fundamentals with your client or CEO, owner, or what have you, right? Your CFO, or if you're the CFO, great. So great. I know there's going to be a lot of people in the audience that are going to lean in there and research more. Appreciate you sharing
yeah,
that. And what I love about what you do, right, especially on the accounting side, people will. I constantly hear this, and I have some buddies, right, that they could be pretty dry sometimes, just across the financial industry, not just accountants, y'all, just across the
yeah.
industry. We all have different personalities, right? But I really love what you do. You truly make it fun. So how do you, and when did that get started? How do you change the narrative when you talk about what accountants really do?
Yeah, so for me, it's just you think of accountants have been portrayed as very boring and whatnot. So I think of that. I'm trying to break that mold. Some of the, especially now, like a lot of the manual and mundane tasks are have been automated and are going away. So accountants do have a lot of fun, especially like I've worked at a CPA firm, other accounting departments. You have like an awesome group of peers that you work with, or even if you go to the fractional capacity, you have an awesome group of peers if you go to networking events, conferences. And so we're always portrayed, except for I guess like the Ben Affleck is maybe changing the narrative a little bit. But
That's like up to the
yeah, you think
extreme.
of like the pencil pushers,
Right, right,
Milton guy from the office,
right.
the movie Office Space or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah,
yeah, just trying to break that mold, show that you can have a lot of fun in accounting. There's so much opportunity to expand your skill set, think strategically and whatnot. And so, yeah, I think it's for me, it's fun. And some people get like, oh, it's too much math, but the math is really it's pretty straightforward math. So a lot of it
fun.
is it's more thinking like critically about like what to do with the data, not actually solving it. For me, I'm like, people think I can do math in my head, and I can do a little bit, but for the most part, I'm like, I'll just open up an Excel spreadsheet and I'll do a bunch of calculations real fast in
I
theirs,
love
and
it.
then versus like trying to think through it in my head.
I'm telling you right now, you got a ton of accountants nodding their head. 20,000 of them are probably following you now, in addition to everyone else following you. That is so funny, but it's true. They're fun. And I love that you said conferences. Go to a CPA conference. You know exactly what Lucas is talking about. Our finance folk like to have fun. Well, that's good. A lot of finance leaders struggle, and we talked about storytelling earlier, but they struggle to explain the results to, let's say, a board of directors or even the ELT group, your executive leadership team. What techniques do you share as best practices for others, within your group there, or outside of your group as you're mentoring others? Any storytelling techniques that can be good conversation starters, or just a great way to get into the financial storytelling?
Yeah. So, a quick aside, one thing I'd recommend, and I started doing it this last fall, I was attending Toastmasters.
Oh, that's
It's a group
awesome.
that's been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
And it teaches you about public speaking and being more comfortable, whether you go on to be like a paid public speaker or you just want to get better presenting to your local church group, your local business, like your own company, and or like a networking event. So it just takes that expands upon your public speaking skills, helps you become more comfortable. They teach you techniques like having a dramatic pause, changing your tone, all that kind of stuff, and even
Right.
using gestures. But for me, it's just like thinking through in advance, what is your audience? Like, what is meaningful to them? I think sometimes as accountants or financial people would think of like, oh, the ROA, like it was this, or like our gross profit is this, but what does that mean for the board of directors and whatnot? So it's taking
Yeah.
thinking through like the audience, what can they then do with that data? So if you tell somebody your gross profit is 56%, is that good or bad? What is it against the industry? But then you could talk through like, okay, 56%, the industry is about 50, so that's good. But then you can expand upon it further, like what can they do as a company? Like, well, maybe we need to evaluate pricing, especially on this product line. I don't think we're getting the margins that we could. So it's taking and really thinking through like what does your audience need and what's valuable to them. So the board of the directors, they could be like, okay, they they want to know the executive team is thinking strategically. So you're giving them data like, hey, last quarter we were at 46%, we've jumped up to 51%. So in their minds, they're saying like, okay, what the executive team is doing is making an impact. And so again, I tie it back to really thinking through what is your end user, what's valuable to them, like what makes the most impact, and then what can they do about it. So board of directors can only do so much, but if you speak to the operations team, they have more of an impact. They can think about buying, inventory, all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
it's really just what does your audience need? What's valuable to them?
You can really inspire a lot of people to take action so that we move those financial key metrics, right? And so,
Yeah.
to your point, communication skills, the ability to storytell, Toastmasters is awesome. I always say, and I used to do this, I'd pull up YouTube and find some of the best communicators, and listen
Yes.
intently to their tempo, to the verbiage, to the strategic pauses, to emphasize. And there's some local people here in Texas that I want to give a shout out, and that's what I was looking down on. I just want to make sure that I got their companies right. But you have Sean Barnes down here in Houston, and then we probably all know him, especially in our world, but Sufyan Hamid, and he's actually going to be on the show here soon. But talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
master storytellers, right?
Yeah.
It's so important in our space. It's not just about our Excel spreadsheets, being behind the screen, knowing the financials. It's being able to speak to your audience, whether that, to your point, be operations, marketing, right, HR, human resources, et
Yeah.
cetera. So spot on. You know, within your bio, I was mentioning that you actually have led, and God bless you, ERP system implementations, and I know how difficult those can be. I've done a ton of those, like you as well, and those can be tricky and lengthy and time consuming. But you've also done financial reporting upgrades as well as dashboards or date what I call data visualization rollouts and digital transformation. So what's your advice for finance teams out there that are now realizing, shoot, I got to modernize the tech stack? How do they approach that? How do they know where to start first?
Yeah. So for where to start first is kind of I would talk to people in their industry, their peers, trusted people in their network, or even like at conferences they attend, and you can get data on what other people's experiences have been with certain like softwares, tools, if it's data visualization or ERP implementation or ERP systems. And then from there, it's taking a step back and okay, this is what I want from the data, but what does it mean for the executive team, like sales, marketing? So you have to think about it because some people just get so focused on all the bells and whistles that they can use in the finance department, which is great. But like, what does that mean? Like, is it really worth the cost? And a lot of times it can be worth the cost, but
Right.
tying it in, like, how does it benefit the sales team, the marketing team, and whatnot? So it's thinking through, and they can get help too from other people in their space and their network. How did you approach your executive team? What were some of the things that you did? It's like some cost benefit analysis of staying on the current path or implementing this new software. And so that's kind of what I did as well. I did some analysis. One time we were looking at switching payroll processing providers, and I did some analysis. Like
That's
one
fun.
of the things was like very manual and tedious, or we can go with this billion-dollar company that does payroll across the US and the world. And so ultimately we went with that payroll provider. But again, it's just thinking through like what does it mean, not just for you and your department, but how can it benefit the company as a whole? And if you can start talking about efficiency and dollar savings, tying like a dollar amount to it,
Hmm.
you're having a higher likelihood of getting buy-in from the executive team and all that kind of thing.
Well, we had Paul Barnhurst, the FP&A guy, on for our first episode, and he too mentioned something, and I've been hearing it out in our space, is that it's just become very overwhelming. There's just a lot of tools out there, right? Those integrations you mentioned, QBO earlier, QBO or Microsoft Dynamics, now Salesforce, and some others, right? It can get overwhelming. So I think there's just people are out there in our space asking, hey, what should I use? Why should I use it? What's the ROI? Right. And so you've had an opportunity, right? And I'd love to use this opportunity to plug in a little Valisights, but you've had a opportunity to do some homework and some research, right? And thank you for all the questions that you've asked around
Yeah.
Valisights. Just any thoughts so far on the feedback on what you've seen?
No, I think it's amazing. Just like it takes the data, like the financial data, and for me, especially since I was actually like I was in art for a little bit in college, it's the data visualizations, like taking the data and making it meaningful. Like even now, like I love building graphs and charts and whatnot to help kind of reinforce the data. So it pulls not only like visually, but then it pulls like key bullet points to focus on. And that's what I love about AI and technology, and then like your company and whatnot is it does it faster. So yes,
Right.
again, you still want to preview the balance sheet, income statement,
Absolutely.
statement of cash flows, but then having the machine kind of assist you. So you're still using your mental capacity to do analysis, but then you're having these data and reports to then expand further. Like, oh, that's something I may have never seen. If it's coming through thousands of transactions, there's things you may have never picked up on and may not spot trends of like, well, if this OPEX spend keeps going in this way, here in another month or two, we're going to be spending 50K, 100K more than we need to. So,
Yeah.
again, that's what I like about your reports. It calls things out that you may not realize if, trying to do the analysis on your own. So, that's why, again, I champion the bringing on AI and everything because it just makes us more efficient at our job, more effective. It's not going to replace us, it just makes us even more
Exactly.
valuable to our current companies, future clients, because we have our accounting knowledge and then these data sets to really drive home what companies need to do to become more profitable and
Right.
more efficient.
Well, what I've seen is there's a lot of clients out there, organizations that are partnering with many of us, accounting firms to controllers to our fractional CFO services, et cetera. They're realizing as they use AI in their personal lives, maybe even in their own profession, they're realizing there should be more squeeze. Like, what is the next level value prop? How do I get more bang for my buck as I'm investing on this on hourly, right? The hourly
Yeah.
services of a fractional CFO, or even maybe on a monthly retainer or subscription. They're looking for more, and so there was a bit of a void there. Now, again, there's great tools out there that maybe do the cash flow forecasting, or
Yeah.
maybe they do some of the P&L insights. What we wanted to do at Valisights is create an entire ecosystem that augments, not replaces, augments the CFO or even the controller, and bring the accountant to the next level. And so we're doing, and I'd love to chat with you about this, but cash flow forecasting, right? The AI intelligence is taking your existing AR, AP, your COA and GL, all of it, extracting it, and quickly within minutes able to actually build out a pro forma, build out a 13-week cash flow. I mean, you and I both know this, and for those listening, you know the amount of hours that it takes to build some of these models. I'm like, why isn't it working? What's going on? What's
Yes.
broken? Or the hours that it takes each week for those of you that do this on actually maintaining it from your ERP or even your bank accounts, and then providing insights to your ELT team takes some time. And so the technology allows you to get there much faster. For those that do this for a living, your ability to acquire new clients now gets tripled, quadrupled, because you're using less time to do what you need to do for your deliverable. So we're really excited about that as well. Peer sites, we actually do competitive analysis. I love your certification and your shout out there. Competitive analysis and benchmarking towards your industry as well as competitors, to an executive package. Again, you close the books, boom, Valisights takes you to the next level with insights. And what I like to say, okay, now what, so what, right? We both know there's many leaders out there. Typically, it's typically your month end close is a little longer than you wanted to. You get
Yeah.
the P&L, but it's total historical look back. Well, shoot, I'm already 3 weeks into the next month, or maybe a month down the road. It doesn't really matter anymore. So you just file it in your system. All right, great.
Yeah.
Revenue up, EBITDA, fine. How's it going? And that's that. This Valisights takes you to the next level. It actually tells you, and it gets you there faster, not only allowing you to close the books faster, it gets you your executive package faster, right? But also tells you, okay, here's the now what, here's the so what, here's what you're flagging, here's what you need to pivot on, here's what you need to continue. So I appreciate you lifting up the hood though, and I look forward to
Yeah.
more feedback. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. Like, unless you do more like scenario planning, like let's say like the economy takes a
Exactly.
hit next quarter or next year, what is a 75%, or like let's say like 25% reduction in revenue? What does that mean? So technology just makes it easier to do that kind of thing, and then you can start planning now, like how do we manage cash flow if sales go down 20-25%, still be healthy. And so again, like with Valisights and like tools like that, you can quickly run scenario planning because like
Exactly.
you've done in your work as well. You build these models in Excel or whatever it is, and they're awesome, but it's easy. Like somebody could open up a model, type something like a hard key, a cell that used to be like a formula, and your model can become like not like error prone very easily. So it's nice having tools to kind of leverage it and, like you said, make it scenario planning and forecasting, which is where the value is for professionals in finance and accounting, is the strategic advisory and whatnot. So
Exactly.
having tools like that to do scenario planning and will help make everyone's lives a lot easier.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of investment and actually interest and open mindedness to AI and finance is actually in the investment banking as well as the private equity side, right? Being able, for those, especially in the M&A activity or any type of consulting work on exit strategy, exit plans. And so the due diligence, right? Even the Q of E for those that do that. I mean, we all know how much time, and it should take quite a bit of time if you're being thorough and you're respecting the process, and that's okay. But using these tools also to just speed that up and be more precise. Again, not taking a human out of the loop, but providing you a deeper look into what is going on in the books and in the financials, and
Yeah.
being able to assess the financial health. But so you're very open minded to AI. So what do you from AI, I think we're getting past the wave of automation, right? I love
Yeah,
that you called out QuickBooks. They're trying hard. I think they'll get there, right? And
yeah,
obviously, there's ERPs that do it really well, but QuickBooks, they'll come along. They're finally letting go of desktop, right? They're just
yeah.
focused. So they'll get there. For everyone that uses it, don't worry, it's all good. They're going to get better. They know what they know. They're good at it. So, but AI, what do you think over the next 2 years, 5 years? Like, what is accounting and even strategic finance looks like? How is it? How do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I think just there's more leverage of AI tools and also having more frameworks available. Because even myself, sometimes like I use ChatGPT a lot for like thinking of some topics, or like if I'm going to do a speech, kind of like help me think of an outline, and then I'll fill in my own
Right,
data from there. But it's there's been places where like you really, especially if you're like a fractional, you don't want to put like your company you're working for
no,
their data out there to like be
right,
known to the world. So I think there's gonna be more tools that are like firewall protected at a cheaper cost. I think now
yeah,
there's tools like that already available, but sometimes it's hard to get to for the person that's just starting out as a fractional. So I
right,
think those tools will become cheaper, more affordable for people that are just starting out and having the offering, and they can leverage that data. So there's going to be more and more tools at a more affordable rate to do predictions, run analysis for the company's financials, but then also like you talked about with Valisights, like the peer comparison. That's another thing that helps as a fractional. You can report all day long on how the company did last month, and you compare it like against a year ago, April, May of 2024. But then, like, what's going on in their peer group? Like,
exactly.
are other companies impacted certain ways? How are tariffs going to impact that kind of thing? So
That's a
there's
big
so
one.
much ebb and flow there, and so that's why I feel like people will be more comfortable, and the tools will be more secure. I think there's already secure options, but there'll be more secure options for people to test data than there are now.
Right. Well, hey, I want to pause for a moment because now you got my mind firing because there's a, right. This is the right now, right? This is the tariff situation. How have you seen that impact any of the clients that you're working with or your own business? Any thoughts there and any advice, right? Because we're all a little uncertain on where it's going to go and things change just about every day, every week.
Yeah.
Thoughts on
So
the tariff situation?
Yeah, so for me, I have not seen a lot of impact because a lot of the businesses I work with, there's some of them that do get some stuff overseas, but it's very minimal. A lot of it is like truly like service-based businesses or US based, like where they're getting some of their materials. But I think the biggest thing is just talking through other like their people in their network and whatnot. And then I've seen other like public accounting firms that have data, and so you talk about you could have the public accounting firms because they have research departments. There's a
Right.
couple economists that I follow, and one of them I have subscribed to their financial reports that I think there's like 2 or 3 times a week, and they kind of delve into manufacturing indexes and tariffs.
Awesome.
And I think the biggest thing now is there's so much uncertainty. I mean, what could happen next week? Certain tariffs could be pulled back, and so I think that's what's caused so much concern is that there's not any certainty on some of the things. So I feel like that's where it comes into play, where you run the scenario planning,
Exactly.
get some data from economists, accounting firms, people in your industry. There's so many groups that are tied to like manufacturing. Let's say you get special interest groups. You can leverage their data and kind of see what they're seeing and start planning out in that regard. So I think that's what I love about technology now, and like through LinkedIn, there's so many different tools and resources you can leverage and connect to, then also marry with your gut instinct. So that's what I want to touch on too with not only tariffs but even AI. Your gut instincts will never go away; those are still valuable. You're just
Right.
going to marry this other information with it to have even more data and insights.
Yeah, such good advice. I think another reason why, for those listening outside of the finance space, you want someone like Lucas, right, and some others that will be on the show, Paul, the FP&A guy, and some others. Especially during these types of times where it's uncertain and this isn't your forte, you need help, right? Scenario-based planning and forecasting modeling is so important for things exactly like this, where you just are not sure. So let's look at scenario A. Let's look at scenario B, right? Like our good old econometrics, right? Scale there and figure out
Yes.
when variable A moves, what happens to the outcome, et cetera. So So important for those listening. I'd highly recommend you rewind that point because this is a hot topic. But Lucas, you've been a part of the small to medium size side of things, right? And as well as the large enterprise corporate environment. How does financial leadership change? Does it change? How does it change? Is there a difference between the two that you've realized?
Yeah, so for me, what I've experienced in my career and what I've seen with other people is just as you move into larger corporations, finance roles and accounting roles are very like niched and very focused. But if you work like for smaller businesses, you could have the title of a controller, but you're doing like maybe some bookkeeping, but then
Get all
you're
the
also
hats.
doing like budgeting, forecasting,
Right.
analysis, like some CFO level work as well. And so that's where smaller businesses, you're going to wear a lot more hats. You can get some exposure on different parts of that. And then another thing too, like if you're working for startups, then you may be starting off like wearing many hats, but then as it builds, you're going to like be more focused on what you do on a daily basis and that kind
Right.
of thing.
You
So
are the finance department.
yeah, you are the finance department. So you'll get a good exposure and whatnot. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I've loved about my career. I've worked for a Fortune 500 company that got bought out by Oracle, but then I've also worked for several companies that are just like mom and pop operations or pretty small in terms of ownership and whatnot. So it's kind of cool seeing how no matter what size of the company, the concerns are still the same: revenue, cost,
Right. The
make sure that they get the
fundamentals.
most productivity out of people and their resources and whatnot. So it's just what you do on a daily basis is more focused for the larger corporations, and could be running all over the place in a good way, like on the smaller business.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of colleagues that are listening that are in the financial arm of the corporate arena, and maybe feeling that itch to want to invest in themselves and be an entrepreneur. And you're such a great example for them all. What made you take the leap, and what would be your advice for those that are thinking about maybe doing both, or maybe even saying, this is enough of the corporate arena. Let me go in on my own and try that out and take the risks. Thoughts there?
Yeah, no, for me, I think it's a great topic. So one thing I would do for me, I when I was looking at doing different things and branching out, is I did the CFO Accelerator with Michael King and his program, and
Oh,
there's some other people
yes.
that have done courses, but really leveraging
I'm
the
going to get him on
framework.
the show, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so so
I
much of it
may
is
go, I
true.
may need to go to Orlando first. He's having a huge
Yeah,
event. I don't know if you're going, but we got to get
I'm
him on
not
the
going
show.
this year. I went to the one last year that was in Dallas,
Oh,
but
that's
again,
awesome. We'll chat more about that. I think I
yeah,
want to head
no, it
out.
was a great course, but like finding like courses and talking to people that for me, I know like one time it kind of like dipping my toes in the water is if you've like worked in corporate forever, you don't want to just some people don't have like the runway to like I can go like 6 months to a year with like one or two clients making like 25% of my revenue or income I was making at corporate. So finding ways to leverage your networks, find maybe some people you could partner with, like, hey, like I can come on, uh, be kind of a like kind of help them out with some of the reporting and whatnot, and just kind of slowly shift your way over. So my biggest thing is like finding a good course, leverage networks through LinkedIn, local like CPA groups, other accounting groups, CMA groups, or whatever it is, and just kind of get other people's perspectives that have done the same thing. So that's what I like about the internet and whatnot. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You can literally meet thousands of people that have been in the similar shoes you were in a year
Yeah.
ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and be like, hey, what do you suggest? And so there's ways to make the risk more calculated, so you're not just like leaving corporate on Friday and like not knowing what to do come Monday. You can be more strategic and maybe pick up one client, pick up two clients, and then you kind of see the income, and then you're like, now I can make the jump. So
Right.
my biggest thing is just talk to people that are kind of like where you want to be, let's say a year from now, 2 years from now. Talk to them and get their experience, and their feedback will be helpful.
So good. And for those listening, reach out if you're thinking about it and you need help, or just you want to have a chat. People like Lucas, people like Paul on our first episode, the FP&A guy, to Michael King, right? So funny. I just, we chatted a couple times, but he's so available. I shot him a quick DM. It was just a
Yeah.
question about something, and he was so gracious to even give me, any of his time. He's so busy, and
Yeah.
So just reach out, right? If you're needing help, don't be shy. Reach out. You got great colleagues in the industry, just like you. We've been there. We're there, right? We're going through it too. So reach out. I love it.
Yeah, I
It's
would say like that just for myself, but I've come across a lot of people like you just mentioned that are very open, like they have very busy schedules, but they are all about paying it forward and helping others. So if you just have like quick questions or quick questions of advice, they're going to be more than happy to kind of help you with that regard. Then if you want to go further, you can explore, like some of them have YouTube channels or
right.
courses or other resources that they can point you to. But a lot of them are be very open. As long as you come to it like with an open mind, like, hey,
Be a
I can use
student.
some advice,
Yeah.
they'll be more than happy to take the time to talk with you.
Great approach. Yeah. If you're looking to pitch something, look, these
Oh yeah,
gents
if
yeah,
if you come to like open, not
right.
like a sales pitch, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I need to do this. Also, can you hire me?" Like, that's not gonna
Right.
work. Or,
Not gonna
"I've got
work.
this product." No,
Yeah.
just come to it like, be very open and
Just be
vulnerable.
vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Just let's we could all a little bit of humility, right? Humility,
Yes, exactly.
vulnerability, just human to human, good connection. Reach out for help. It's so good. You made me think about something now, and it was about something earlier when we were talking about technology and speed and precision. Our industry, and I'm talking about the fractional. It's hot right now. It's exciting because I think businesses are realizing, shoot, like I need a finance department, or I need a finance specialty, finance leadership. Typically, the industry has billed on an hourly, and I'm going to get into the very narrow here. So for those of you that I'm like losing here, I'm so sorry, but we gotta chat about this. This industry, the CFO, fractional CFO service industry, is historically build on the hourly. Well, with this technology, this digital species AI, you're able to get things done faster. So you can argue, well, the hours to get my deliverables done are actually shortened. Therefore, my pay then potentially is shortened. Then you have this other side of the field. It's like, no, we do it on a monthly retainer, and what we do in there, some weeks will be, over the average of hours, and some weeks will be under the average of hours. Have you heard of that? Have you been thinking about that at all?
Yeah, no, Yuri, one of like my friends, like the fun CPA Yuri on LinkedIn, if you looked him
Yeah,
up, he talks about that because he used to work in public accounting and the billable hour. And
right. The billable hour.
yeah, I would love to see that die off, or at least like be scrapped to the way it was before, like where it's like that's the only focus. I think there's more to be done, like having like value based pricing. So, like you said, if it takes you 10 hours because you're leveraging technology instead of 40, well then yeah, you still have that value of like, let's say $4,000 a month versus like down to $1,000 a month. So
Right.
it's finding it. And then that's what I like about technology is you can leverage it, help more clients, still
Exactly.
deliver the same value, the same insights, helping them, not shortchanging them in any capacity, but you'll have more time freed up to serve other clients as well. So for me, I'm all about like the value-based pricing model, finding something, and there's so many different people out there. You can kind of talk with them about how they're doing their pricing, the services they're offering. Like if you this level is 4,000 a month, this level is 5,000 a month, and kind of get an estimate and like that. So some companies, CPA firms may still keep the billable hours or tracking hours on the back end for certain things, but overall, I definitely champion the value-based pricing.
Yeah, billable hours versus value-based pricing. I'd love to hear from the audience on what your thoughts are about that, especially if you're currently doing one or the other. I'm actually going to have Irene Seelig on the show. She's from an account group and has a plethora of data for this specific thing. And I won't spoil the beans on which side of the aisle she's really pressing on, but it's so interesting from a pricing and how you're pricing, how you're offering your services for those that are doing this type of work. Really, really interesting. Switching back to Accounting Couture scholarships, we mentioned it earlier, has been a big part of your vision at Accounting Couture. So, can you walk us through why is it so important, specifically for those that you're looking to support as far as career switchers entering accounting?
Yeah, so I'm still early on in the process. Like my goal is to like increase revenue with different product sales to get
Yeah,
to a point where I can do more with scholarships. But my big thing is when you are in, well, obviously when you're in college, there's tons of scholarship opportunities available, if you get out like of your 4 year degree, 5 year degree, like say you're going for the CPA, you get
Hmm.
hired at a firm, they'll help pay for the study materials and the
Right.
exams themselves. But for me, like I changed my career 5, 6 years later. And so there's just not as many resources. Some companies do offer reimbursement for exams or tuition assistance if you're changing and doing more college courses, let's say. But my big thing is I just want to make it easier for, because sometimes companies will pay for, let's say, like courses, like college courses, but they won't pay for your study materials for an exam, or they may pay like a certain portion of the fee for the exams themselves. So I'm just trying to leverage that, or maybe give them some money that they could put towards the exam fees themselves or the study materials, and just make it easier to, because for me, like I love being a CMA. I wish there was more CMAs.
Yeah.
And so, or
Sounds like
just
we need
accounting.
more.
Yeah. And so I'm very passionate about it because accounting for me has been very helpful for like providing for my family, taking care of my family. So if people are interested in accounting, I don't want them to be like shy away from like, oh, then I have to pay X amount for a course and all that kind of stuff. So I want to break down as many barriers as possible and make it easier for them to step into becoming a CMA, CPA, or whatever it is.
That's awesome. Well, we need more of that. And I think you're going to inspire a lot of people and people wanting to connect with you.
Yeah.
That's so good. So, as you look at finance, not just in 2025, but financial leadership 2026 and beyond, is there anything that you're interested to see what happens as far as any type of pain points in our industry or the biggest gaps? You're just like scratching your head, like, how has this not changed yet? Anything that comes to mind there that maybe someone out there listening can go and solve for or fix for us?
Yeah. I guess the big thing for me would just be like the just like the leveraging AI or other technologies.
Mm,
I know because sometimes people get burned. Maybe they've invested in implementation that went bad.
right.
So it's just being having people more on board for taking the time, especially now that tools are out there and are also becoming more price, like the prices are getting better on some of the products, different things. So really opening the eyes for finance people, operations, like, hey, let's look at this investment. Yeah, I know we got burned. And yeah, I guess I would just say moving away from the sunk costs. Like, who cares how much
Mm,
implementation of 2022 cost? Yeah, that was terrible, but we're 3 years beyond that now. Like, what do we do to go forward? And so, my big thing is like, don't focus on sunk costs. Really think forward and try and like determine the value of what the software or tool could bring to your company.
yeah, that's so good. I was speaking of AI. I think especially in our space, there's a lot of tension around two things that I hear, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Number one is security, and that's okay. I think that's a good thing, right? It's just
Yes.
I wouldn't trust any of these large language models. Now they're amazing, but we still don't know what we don't know. And to your point earlier, and we gotta double click on this one is do not share your sensitive information with ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. This is sensitive, confidential information, especially if you're a private organization and it's kind of under wraps. You don't want to share it because that can get out and
Yeah.
people can search, you can prompt, and you can find it for those that aren't being secure with their data. And many of you listening, a lot of your team members are probably doing that. It's probably a good idea to have an AI policy, an AI
Yes.
policy there. So one tension point, security, and I think that's okay. We need to be very cautious with this intelligence, right? And the other side is not just the fear of security, but the ROIs. How do we measure this? I get that so much. I hear that a lot. How do we measure the upside? Like, how do we really know if this is worth the investment? Have you heard that? And any thoughts on maybe what should we be measuring? How do we come up with the measurables?
Yeah, so in terms of the security, I definitely am all on board with that. As accounting professionals, finance professionals, we're very risk averse, especially when it comes to financial data,
Right.
and especially if you've like working in compliance, even more so.
Mm.
But I feel like what I do, like whenever I do like some prompts, is I will remove anything tied to the company. I just do like high level, like act as the CFO at a company, and just have very generic
I
guidelines
love
because it's
that.
still going to give you a pretty good detailed explanation, like act as a CFO of a company that the revenue is down 20%, but it looks to recover next quarter. And so the better you get at prompting, you can get really good data and insights without having to dump in the company's full like P&L, income, balance sheet, all that kind of stuff. So getting better at prompting. And in terms of the ROI, that's a good question. For me, I think it's just kind of analyzing what does it take for you to currently now like produce the financial results. Let's say it takes you like 10, 15 days to close. Kind of seeing like, if we used
Mm,
an AI tool, what might that look like? I mean, it's not perfect, but you could estimate maybe we could save 3 or 4 days on the close. Well, what does that mean? That opens up 4 more days of your team being available to do other tasks and whatnot. And then you
right.
have that more timely financial data. So looking at it, not only the investment of the service itself, but also the savings and labor cost.
Yeah, that's good. I like that from a labor cost savings because everyone's looking for that, especially with some
Yeah.
increased prices on the supply chain, right?
Yeah. I
And
think of
goods and
all the
all of that.
different software implementations or upgrades or switching to like from manual expense reports to Concur at the time, I was just doing like an analysis, like the cost savings, like if you can put it into dollars and cents for executives.
Right,
And I mean, nothing's perfect. You can't like, okay, it's guaranteed to be $70,000
right.
annually or a month, but you can kind of get like a general idea, and then it's much more. You have a higher chance of buy-in if you're delivering like it's going to save X amount per month, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The other side I looking, and I'm sure you have this experience too. One of the first places I go when I lift up the hood is cash flow.
Yes.
More often than not, and I get it, right? It's again not a maybe not an owner's forte. They don't truly understand what their cash positioning is, the inflows and outflows, and typically that cash flow cycle is upside down, right, due to timing and different other variables. And there typically is not even any type of cash flow forecast model whatsoever, right? So those are my favorites because I'm like, I'm going to fix this bad boy. We're going to
Yeah.
get things going. You're going to know exactly what's going on and what we need to do about it. And I'm still trying to understand how do you measure the value there and the decision making process, right? Your ability to make better, quicker decisions so that the company grows or that you don't invest in X or that you do invest in Y, right? So I think we're getting there and probably need a little bit more data, but that's another way when we're measuring these ROIs, like the cash flow side, right? Or to your point earlier on peer sites, the benchmarking to your peers, like some of those different things that you can use this intelligence for to grow your business. I mean, clearly there's an ROI. It's just figuring out how to directly tie it to. But
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. That's what I'm really excited about is just the precision, right? The speed, the better decision making process, right? And then this significant decrease in manual work. I mean, we all know it very well, and
Yeah.
it's time to lean in more into AI so that you don't have to do that and you can spend more time. Even either it's the advising and the communication piece that we're saying, or even, and Lucas, you do this so well, and you're a great inspiration. Spending time with your family and not staying up late at night or early morning trying to figure out why the heck are my formulas broken, or why can
Yes,
I get this
exactly.
model working? Right? Let the intelligence work it through, and then scrub it. Right? Still human in
Yes.
the loop.
That's why going back to it, that's why I think having a firm foundation in accounting is important, because if you know like debits and credits and like T accounts, you
Right?
don't have to do that on a daily basis. But if you have that framework, then you could think it through analytically. Like if you're seeing the financial results, the income statement, why is this one account so off? And then you like have that intuition of like, what do I like, where to go check? Because if you don't have that fundamental knowledge, like
No.
debits and credits and how things work, you can be like, oh, I have no idea, and I can try and come through the data, but that you could take that base knowledge and then go like, I know exactly where I need to look, and check, and you can start checking journal entries and whatever it is, or you could have like an AI tool do it for you. But having that fundamental knowledge gives you like key things to focus on, and having an understanding of like, like even QuickBooks or whatever tool it is, like produces the financial statements, but like what's really going on behind the scenes. And so that's why I think it's so like critical and important to have that base knowledge, and then you leverage that with technology, and that way you can test it. Because I know sometimes people are worried about AI and getting false results, but
Hmm.
if you have the AI result and you can think it through it like from your accounting expertise and be like, you can start using that as a check on
Yeah.
the data.
Man, so much fun. Well, I appreciate what you're
Yes.
doing and thank you for coming on today. I love what you mentioned around using accounting as a storytelling platform, as well as your launch pad as a strategic asset or, financial strategy piece. Accounting fundamentals are so important. And then finally, I know you're gonna hear a lot about this. We love what you're doing for our future generations and our kiddos. And as I mentioned, I bought a couple of copies. Speaking of that, of your book, how can the audience learn more about you, your book, Accounting Couture? I mean, first of all, like I said, take the next step, follow Lukas because the LinkedIn posts are outstanding. How do we reach out to you? How do we learn more about you? How can we connect with you?
Yeah, so the big one is like you said, LinkedIn. I'm very active on the platform. I love it. It's a great way. I've met so many different people through that, like not only like in the US, but around the world that I've had even sometimes like even just general discussions. And so LinkedIn is a great place. And then accountingcouture.com, the website. I try and keep it updated. So I have links in there. I have some of it's like the t-shirts and the activity book, but I also have links in there for resources for people that are considering accounting
Oh,
or they
cool.
want to like look at credentials, some links to like resources for exam review, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I'm just trying to like pay it forward and have that available out there as well on the site.
That's awesome. Well, everyone, make sure to connect with Lukas, buy his book. Right, it's so cool, especially if you have your kiddos. Shoot, if I didn't have kiddos, I'd still buy it because you get the fundamentals
Yeah.
in there. We need this stuff. I love it. Well, so exciting. Thank you so much, sir. And I appreciate you too for lifting up the hood and doing your research on Valisights. And we're really excited to communicate that to everyone. If you're looking to elevate your finance teams on how you make decisions, right? And not just rely on or focus on what I would call the static reporting or static spreadsheets, but really talk about and taking it to the next level for insights, recommendations, strategic finance, go to valisights.com. We're excited to chat with you about it. Lukas, you've been awesome. So good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, everyone, this has been the Valisights podcast. We'll be back here soon. We have a great lineup all the way through the rest of the year. Very excited about that. Thank you for those that have decided to schedule this in. So we'll have a great lineup, like as you heard here with Lukas and Paul, the FP&A guy. We have so many more. I'm your host, Albert Ramos, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Lukas.
Yeah. Thank you.